Welcome everyone. I am Jill Hope with iShine and iShine Wealth. And I want to give you a little background on why we're having this conversation today. A couple of days ago, I was talking to my friend, client, and successful, wonderful coach. And we were talking about just about our businesses and sharing what was going on for each of us. And as I was talking and Julie was listening to me, I was sort of downplaying my previous business, my original iShine, where I was working with parents, and I wasn't really fully stepping into the fact that I had created a really successful business. And she kind of pointed that out to me, and in terms of, well, Jill, here you are wanting to start like a new business, and you're kind of really dishonoring all of what you've done by the way you're speaking. And I hadn't even realized I was doing that. And I realized, gosh, like if I'm doing that here, where else am I doing this in my life? And there are probably other ways that I'm not even aware of, that I'm dishonoring myself, not being grateful for what I have accomplished, and putting kinks in my hose, in my journey, as I'm trying to create new things that I want in my life. So that was a big blind spot that was revealed to me through that conversation. And I was so kind of blown away. So I asked Julie, gosh, can we have this conversation, but bring in some people? Because I cannot be probably the only person that is doing things unknowingly and kind of putting these little kinks in my hose. And so she graciously accepted, because Julie really is an expert on how we dishonor ourselves when we're going for what we want, and how we don't, even if we think we're really taking care of ourselves, a lot of times we're really not. And so I'm really excited to have her here and to share her with all of you today when we talk about these 6 sneaky ways that we dishonor ourselves. So Julie, welcome.
Thank you so much, Jill. This is so great. It's a great idea. I love it. It's nice to bring other people into the conversation, and it's nice for us to look at things in a new way. And I think
Yes,
that's going to help.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, Julie, before we get into the 6 sneaky ways, do you want to just give everyone who's listening to this, whether they're here live or on the recording later, just a little bit of information about who you are and why they should listen to what you have to say today?
Sure, I'd be glad to. I call myself a well-being coach. So I've been a life coach, I've been a wellness coach, and now it's sort of combined with, we can do a whole lot if we have well-being, we have balance, and we have compassion, and all the different things that you can have to improve your well-being. Is not just to exercise more or drink more water. It's a whole lot more inner work than that. But to me, it's not just inner work. So this past year of 2020, not in 2021, I sat down for an entire year and wrote my book, my story, and it's a memoir. And it is called Light on the Pond Scum. But the reason it's called that, and what I've done with it, is looked at all the ways that I settled for less than I should have or deserved all along the way. And I think what's interesting is that some of us talk to others about being betrayed. So and so betrayed me. And one of the coaches that Jill and I work with has always said to people, but where did you betray yourself first? And I think that's a big question. Are we really honoring ourselves and then requiring that other people do it too? Or are we just kind of letting things slide? And that's how we settle. And I say to people, don't settle, sister.
Yeah, there's so much. I mean, I know that my life has been a huge. I have a string of examples I could give for all of the different ways that I have settled in my life, and it's only been in the last few years that I've really woken up to that and just said, I'm done. Like I'm going for what I want. There's not a, that we tell ourselves that, it's selfish to want more. And so you should just take the small one. That's
Right.
good enough. I always heard good enough was supposed to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And, that may be fine in some situations, but not when it's a pattern and it's actually holding you down. And that's really what I kind of woke up to. So yeah, I'm right there with you. Yes.
Yeah.
No more settling.
Well, I was really glad to see you able to honor your first business and how wonderful that was. Just big to say, well, yes, I did create a successful business and run it for years. And here's my purpose in helping people understand this is when you come from the place of, oh, well, I've never done anything well, or I've always been kind of a failure, or I've always been kind of, half-assed or something, then you don't really strive in the same way that you would if you honored that you created a successful business and ran it for years. The confidence and the belief in yourself and the everything, the power, literally the power and the energy that you have to do the next thing comes from, oh my gosh, I just did such a great job at the last thing.
Yeah, and one of the things that was really interesting for me when I was thinking about all of the things I actually, I mean, it did kind of blow me away, some of the things that I had accomplished that I just sort of glossed over, like, okay, next. And I didn't really take a moment to realize, like, this is kind of cool. Like, I mean, I was on the morning television here in Chicago. Like, that's not normal, like,
Well,
that's kind of cool. But I just sort of, like, I almost forgot about it. I mean, I just kind of minimized it. And, and so anyways, yeah, just the whole thing, when I started to look at all the pieces, and it's like, wow. And what really became clear to me, though, and this was really huge, was after I stepped back from it and I did really do an accounting of all the things that I felt I had accomplished in that business that I considered to be a success, I also saw clearly where I was holding myself back along the way. So that this time around, I can not do that, not hold myself back in that way. It became really obvious. Whereas when I was in it, I couldn't see it. And now it's like, oh my God, I know exactly, like I can see where I wasn't owning certain parts and really fully stepping into it. And no wonder, like I could have gone so much further. I see that now, but at the time I couldn't see it. So yeah.
there's a document that I've done a number of times called the Groundhog Day page. And it's really just, you make yourself a chart and it's the things that you did do. And then if you were to do it again now, what worked back then? But if you were to do it again now, what would you do differently, knowing what you know? And it's really like that movie, Groundhog Day. And Fabienne Fredrickson teaches it. And just like any program that you start or any business that you start or any relationship, you can Groundhog Day it and see, what worked well, and then what would you do differently now that you know what you know. But that is too also about honoring yourself that, first of all, you did it, and you did it with only what you knew back then. You didn't do it with what you know today. And we learn so much all the time. So it's a better place to begin. It's a much better place to begin when you realize that you're awesome.
We all are awesome. And that sounds like a great assignment for people too. Anyone that's interested in playing with that tool, that sounds great. I love that idea of the Groundhog Day sheet. So why don't we hop into the 6 sneaky ways? You ready for that?
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds great. So
right.
when I work with someone one-on-one or in a group program, I go through these 6 things and I stop them and ask them a series of questions. And I think the thing about coaching, and that's what you were saying earlier, is that you have people in your tribe who'll just say, oh yeah, great job. But a coach will challenge you. And you actually let a coach challenge you because you want them to. So, people will say to me, well, boy, nobody's ever asked me that question before. Well, yeah, that's because you're investing in this kind of push. So if you honor yourself in the first way is, do you admit, and that's kind of what we already talked about, your strengths, your accomplishments, how far you've come, and can you do that in a way that's really truthful and not diminishing anything? We have a tendency to just go, yeah, I got a PhD, so what? Or my cousin's that way. Or, yeah, last year I wrote a book. Yeah, it's out there. It's on Amazon. Or what you said about being on television. So that's one way we don't honor ourselves, is we don't look at the little bitty steps we took, or even big ones, that we would be really, here's the key, that we would be really impressed with in someone else. If a friend came up to you and said, "Oh my God, you raised 3 beautiful children," you're like, "Oh yeah, in my sleep." But if you had a friend who did that, you're like, "My gosh, your kids are so accomplished or well behaved or beautiful," or whatever you would say to them. You would ooh and ah over someone else doing those things. And how many people on the planet have been on that, Chicago television? Not very many. Certainly not me. So there's a lot of different ways that you think of your either they aren't strengths, or you think of your accomplishments as not much. So that's the way number one.
Just so resonating with how we do minimize ourselves so much. Well, and the thing is, we do really take for granted what we do in our lives,
Right.
don't we?
Right.
Like you think, oh, that, like I've talked, a lot of the clients I work with who are building businesses, and I'll point things out to them and they're like, as if, you're an expert in this area. Like I'll be talking to someone and I'm like, this is your area of expertise. Like you can share this with people and this is very valuable. People will pay money to learn this from you. And they're like, that? Like, absolutely. But because they know it, they feel like everybody knows it, and everybody doesn't know it.
No.
It's just we're so used to living with ourselves, so we don't see ourselves that way. And it really is a way of that we dishonor ourselves. I love that one.
And it reminds me of what, like spouses say to each other about not taking me for granted. I don't want you to take me for granted. I don't want you to, pretend that it's all just nothing when, it was something exciting a few years ago or back at the beginning. So the same thing is true, that we do that. We take ourselves for granted in that, have how intelligent we are, or how well spoken we are, or how beautiful we are. I asked a client a couple of days ago, and I've asked many of them this question, to start off with a list of 50 things that many, like, I don't know, 80% of the women in the planet would envy about you. And she was like, she didn't give me one. I was like, well, come on. I mean, you're beautiful. You're married. You have 3 beautiful kids. You have a job with the military that you've had for years. I mean, I could give her 25 just in a blink. And she was sitting there going, oh, well, I guess, my car's not paid for. Yeah, but you have a car. So many different things. And so it is partly like taking yourself for granted, or taking your assets for granted. When you're in business for yourself, you are your only asset. So don't take that one for granted. You wouldn't take a Cadillac for granted. You would take it out and wash it every day or whatever. But you do need to honor that you're your biggest asset in your business. So the second one that I have is learning to lean into what lights you up. So I don't think that people honor themselves. I often say women, but I realize that there are some men that really fit in the same category. So I'm not going to try to be specific here. But how much have you written or asked yourself or spent time with, wait a minute, what about my day really lights me up? Or what about my year really lights me up? I'm going to this job. I met with a friend yesterday, and she talked about her career. And she said, well, I sort of fell into it. I didn't really love it. I did it for whatever, till retirement. It gave me a nice retirement, so that was nice. But you could tell that there was like nothing about that career that she had ever loved for 1 minute. So did she honor herself by not even asking the question, what do I really love to do? It could have been just a hobby. It could have been just a summer thing. It could have been just a week-long vacation once a year that she did something that she was crazy about or lose herself in the zone and things like that. Do we really honor ourselves that way these days? Or do some of us just kind of plod away on the hamster wheel and just keep going? I guess it's a question.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people, I feel very good about saying most people actually, are guided to, when it comes to a career path or, what you're going to be doing for your livelihood, are guided to something for almost every reason other than what lights you up, right? We're put onto paths that seem like the safe path, the path that will, create create money for you or, get your needs met, safety. We're very much driven into safety as opposed to where's your joy.
Right.
And I mean, even kids in school, I mean, they're not taught to figure out what lights you up. And one of the things that I'm working with a 14-year-old boy right now, and I love it so much because he's at that age where I can share these things with him and he's really open to it. So we've been working on his passions and things like that. And I mean, that can change the trajectory of a person's life when they realize what their passions are and or their desires or what lights them up, and they make choices based around that as they move forward. But so many people, like you're saying, we end up in this kind of midlife phase and it's like, yeah, I've got my retirement. I've, had a great career, but like, was I happy? When I look back, do I see lots of things that felt really good in my life? And I think now more than ever, as we're moving closer to the, whether you believe this or not, but I do, that, we're getting close to this point of where, ascension, the vibration of our planet is shifting. We're going through a major change. And anyone who starts to focus in on what is true for you in your heart, you're going to be on the leading edge of that, because that's going to be all there is we are going to be living based on what is true to us and what lights us up, as opposed to what I think I need to do, to get by in my life. Julie, I think you're muted.
I just muted myself on purpose for just 1 second.
Oh, okay.
There was some noise here. I just wanted to add that it's not too late. I don't know that people realize. That's why I was thinking about the person who's in her 70s that I met with for lunch. In her view, it might be too late, but that's the important thing is it's not. She's got a full, capacity of her mind and body. So there's all kinds of things you can do with, it doesn't have to be a whole new 20-year career. It could be just a week, or it could just be, a half an hour a day of something that makes you really, enjoy your life. So it's not too late. And we get that feeling of, even young people feel sometimes in their 20s, oh, it's too late. I'm already turning into I'm going to be an accountant. Oh, okay. Then, and if you think it's too late, then maybe you're making it too late, but it really doesn't have to be.
Yeah. So. I mean, I left my corporate career in my mid 40s. So I don't know. Was that too late? No. I've never been more joyful in my life. So I would say not.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I taught school for 35 years. And so my retirement was in 56, I guess I retired from teaching and started over and became a coach. So I like this way more. Teaching had its thing, but lots of parts of it that I liked. But it was also something that I followed because my mother and my grandmother were teachers. So that kind of leads very well into the third one, which is seeing the pathway to all possibilities. So the next thing after you figure out what lights you up is you kind of go, oh, well, that lights me up, but I can't do it. So then to open up your mind and your heart to possibilities, that would be honoring yourself in a different way. And I don't think we do that. What are some possibilities that leads me to. And it can be a sitting, quiet meditation kind of thing of like, wow, brainstorming, without doing anything else, brainstorming a list of 100 ways that this could become something. Not necessarily become, $1 million business, but become something that you would enjoy doing. And when you open up your mind and you're honoring this wish that you might have, then you start to see possibilities that you didn't see. Like, oh my gosh, I remember that my brother's wife's cousin, collects rocks or whatever. And it opens up the way that you can see a new way, a new path. The path seems closed, and that's how we don't honor ourselves, is to close that path before we even look at it. How are we going to get from here to there? Oh, we're not. Is that honoring yourself? So I would ask, give yourself a journaling or a meditation practice or something where you open up to, I wonder what's possible for me. And sometimes that could be like relationships. I was divorced for 20 years. And in the midst of being divorced for 20 years, it seemed like every single year it all became more hopeless. It's like, oh, 15 years. Oh, wow. It just kept getting more and more and more to feel like, well, there's nothing I can do. Now I'm 50 and now I'm 50, whatever, So possibilities can really change everything if you just, see that they might be out there. Well, what if I actually like spoke to so-and-so and, that doesn't bring you a new career, but it brings you a different person to speak to. Or someone calls you and says, I heard that you were doing this. So anyway, it's another step to realize that if you're not even open to the possibilities that are out there, as if you were, let's say, the 14-year-old boy, he's all possibilities, right? But if I'm 62 and I don't give myself the minute or two to look at possibilities, I'm not honoring my own real, my soul, my true self. I'm really not. So I guess the story right here is that we went on a vacation and decided to move, like, I don't know, 4 states away, just like this month of July. We went on vacation in July and we came back and decided to buy a condo and move there. And it was like little bitty steps towards that possibility. I wonder if we could this. And then it did happen. I wonder if we could that. And then that did happen. It was just these little bitty. And so I never thought I would leave the state that I'm in. I'd been here for 33 years, but it just kind of was an allowance of possibilities. So that's a very honoring thing. And I'm excited about it now. It's a big deal, but I'm excited about it. So I guess what relates to that one, I'm going to keep going for number 4, is to how do we go towards our inner guidance? And I talked about that a minute ago, and it kind of goes together, is what if you wanted to hear from yourself? What if you wanted to honor yourself by actually listening to yourself? I have this, and I guess it does show up. It does show up. This is on my desk, so you can see it. This is from my spiritual teacher's handwriting. It's his handwriting, copied. But it requires that you stop. You can't listen to yourself while you're busy running around and saying, yeah, I really wish I could have a more creative career. Oh, well, I better get to work. I better do the laundry, So you actually have to stop to listen to yourself. And that's where being mindful, brainstorming, sitting in meditation, doing a prayer where you actually listen to the answer, for a while, maybe every day for 20 minutes, maybe every day for 5 minutes. But you might, if I go to nature and I sit outside in the backyard on the porch swing or something, I'm going to get different answers to my question, my insight kind of questions, than I am if I'm just going with the flow and getting things done and clearing off my messy desk or whatever I need to do. Go to get gas in the gas station. I come back and I'm like, oh, I didn't get any answers. But wait a minute, was I listening? So we don't honor ourselves because we don't listen to ourselves. And we don't listen to what we kind of call the downloads, the guidance that will come. If you're saying, I want to sit, let's say I wanted to sit for 30 minutes and honor that I'm asking for guidance on a topic. And I sit there for 30 minutes and I just think about that topic and I wait till I hear something or I feel something. And then that doesn't come up with an answer. It doesn't work. So then I do it again and I do it again and I do it again. And then all of a sudden I find that when I'm driving, because when you're driving, you're not really meditating, but you're not really doing a lot of things at once. You're just driving. I'll get these ideas that come in the middle of driving and I can't write them down. So it's very frustrating, but I love them, having, one example that I love is connecting to people who were both single and wanting not to be single and were the same age. And I was friends with both of them. And I was driving 2 years ago and I went, oh, I need them to meet. And, now they've been married since last October. So it all worked out really well. But I don't know that it would have come to me if I had been rushing or busy or doing things. It came to me because I was doing not very much and I was quiet. I also have to say that when I drive in the car, I don't listen to the radio. It is quiet. So it's honoring your need for listening and for quiet and for how we listen to the answers we need to get.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that we will get upset with people in our lives that are, excuse me, that are close to us when they don't listen to us. But then we don't hold ourselves to the same standard. We don't listen to ourselves, which is kind of interesting. This is great, Julie. So what's number 5?
Number 5 is wake up your well-being. So, and that's going back to what you talked about at the very beginning about how we take care of ourselves. We're exhausted, we're rushed, we let other people rush us. We let other people dictate our days. And so, sometimes there's no choice. You have to. You're working for a corporate office or something, and you have to have somebody else dictate your day. But you don't have to let them dictate your whole life. You can have that green smoothie. You can, have 2 days of fasting. You can go away on a vacation. There's so many ways that we don't honor what we really need to take care of ourselves. And we talk about, being on an airplane and they still tell us, I was just on an airplane this month, put the oxygen mask on yourself first and then you'll be able to help the rest of the people around you. Why is that? Well, because they don't want you to pass out. Well, the same thing is happening to us. I know it's happening. Men and women all over the place are taking care of everyone else before they take care of themselves. And it's backwards and it's not working. And you're not honoring yourself if you're like, oh my God, I'm constantly exhausted. When am I ever gonna whatever? Get a break, get a nap, go outdoors. But if you turned that around, if you flipped it and honored yourself and said, I have these 5, I had a coach had said, I don't know how many, 5 or 10 things that she absolutely did every morning before 7 a.m. Now, I'm not so great about the before 7 a.m. thing. I don't know about you. But I do have lists of things that will get done every morning by, 9 or 10 that are for me. Energy medicine and outdoor walking and Tai Chi and drinking 2 glasses of water and those kind of things that are like taking care of me so that when someone does come and interrupt my day by saying, oh my God, I need you to do this, I can. So we would ask ourselves to honor ourselves better. We would ask ourselves, what is it that I'm not doing for me that would really make next week like so much more awesome for me, which in turn makes it more awesome for my family and my coworkers and my friends. What if I did blank? And then you just kind of listen to yourself and try it. Try having that whatever it is in your life for just 1 or 2 times. And then you're like, wow, I don't know how I ever lived without it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. And then the last one is number 6, to how you manifest a truly meaningful life, more fulfillment, more what lights you up. How do you manifest that? And I don't think this kind of takes us full circle back to the beginning in a way, is that manifesting things is about gratitude for what already is. And so again, with that list of 50 ways that 80% of the women out there would wish they were you, and writing in a gratitude journal, or I also have this one client writing her own manifesting journal, which means it's different than a gratitude journal. It's, your gratitudes are, oh, wow, the sun shone today and it was rain, or, the clouds were whatever, things that happened that you were appreciative of and you liked and you can be grateful for. But a manifesting journal is different. It's things that you wanted and you created. And when you see that pattern, that, oh my gosh, that weird thing that happened where money came out of nowhere, or in this client's life, she didn't even see it, but somebody in her office, she hates going into the office. She likes working from home. So now she's back at the office and somebody got COVID this week and she had to go home. And it was like, she was like complaining. And I said, wait a minute, isn't that what you wanted? Oh yeah, that's what I wanted. So she got to, however you look at the world web, the real web, it worked. She didn't have to go in for 2 weeks. She has to stay home. Dang, poor thing. So she's loving it, and then she was complaining about her family vacation because of her mother-in-law. Well, she also manifested this family vacation on her own. They all went together. They all drove. They visited her family and his family. They all spent the whole week together. They had a great time in general. Didn't you create that? Didn't you say, I want this, and then you created it and made it happen? Yeah, I did. So it's almost like, if you want miracles, if you want magic, notice the magic. Wow. Oh my gosh, that happened and that's what I wanted to happen. I got that new client. That new client that I just got asked me, hey, can I join your program? I didn't have to even ask her. That was crazy, So, and then of course, my last example is you, Jill, and how wonderful this is and how wonderful you have been to talk to on a regular basis for this past, 6 months. How did I manifest such a wonderful buddy and friend and co-coach? I don't know, but I did, because you're there and I love it. And you're very, very powerful as an honoring mirror. Just like I said something to you about your previous career, you do that to me all the time.
Oh, well, I really received that, and that I really feel that, Julie, and so thank you for sharing that. And I feel the same way about you. I really appreciate what we've been able to create over the last 6 months. I do want to say about this last point that you were talking about with the manifesting. And that is like one of my hot things. Like if I could take everyone I come into contact with and show them, this is how powerful you are. We all have that ability. And I love what you suggested of go through and write a manifesting journal. Really get real with yourself, because that is a place that we hugely dishonor ourselves, is we don't accept the power that we have that we created all this stuff in our life. Like, we really did create it. And when you start to recognize it, you amp up your power. And I have seen that firsthand. I control the weather. I've been creating healings, first on myself, now on other people. It's because I've started to see that, oh my gosh, I really have, but we all have the same power. We all have access to it. And you start to really be able to step into it and own it when you recognize all the ways that you've already used it without even realizing it.
And you might dishonor yourself by seeing it as unimportant or an accident or I didn't really do that and it wasn't, that's how you dishonor yourself. And if you can turn it around and say, wow, I did create that. I mean, that client that just walked into the group on Zoom and said, hey, I want to be in your group, I had to have explained it to her and I had to have given it the right name and I had to have, done my part. So yeah, I had a role in making that happen. And I had a role in you and I working together. And I had a role in becoming a coach, and working with all the clients that I have worked with who have all done very, very well. It's I guess people don't honor themselves because they feel like, well, I don't want to brag that it's me. It's not really me. And you know that it comes from somewhere else. It's the life force, it's the universe, it's whatever you want to call it. But those are the downloads. You got that. I didn't create that this man and this woman ought to meet. It came to me. So it isn't me being like, oh, all that. It's being able to listen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we don't do this in a silo. Like we are, and I fully know that, you know, it's me without God is there. It doesn't exist. Like any of these things, I do this much. God does this much. It's just you direct what you want, but then the power is, we're connected to that power. We make a choice, we make a decision, and God waits for us, God, the universe, whatever you want to call the higher intelligent power, waits for our every command, and then we'll summon the energy in that direction. But and then we just need to step into it. But I mean, that's a whole separate topic. But yeah,
Well,
I'm with you.
it does have to do with what I said before about listening to yourself or listening to whoever you're listening to. But the power is the saying yes. And we get that from our coach. That did you say yes to your yes? Well, did you say yes to what you heard when you listened? Did you say yes to God? Did you say yes to your soul wanting to paint watercolor pictures of waterfalls? Did you say yes somewhere where the question was asked? Or did you always say no? And that takes me back full circle to honoring yourself. Do you honor yourself by saying yes to your yes? I hope so.
Yeah. Well, Julie, this has been really wonderful. I mean, very rich, packed with ideas and tools people can look at, and in a fairly short, we went a little longer than I hoped, but fairly short package here. So before we wrap up today, can you let people know how they can find you if they want to go deeper with this work?
Yes, absolutely. jlittlehealth.com is my website. And there is a place there to book a 30-minute aha session with me to talk about your own challenges and the challenges that you are still struggling with, maybe. My business now is Jewels of Wellbeing. And I'm actually speaking tomorrow with the lady who's doing the logo and the tagline for that. So that's kind of fun. But I am Jewels of Wellbeing, and people call me Jules. And that's the idea. My email that I answer the most is julie.little52@gmail. So emailing me or looking at my website, either one of those is great.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here and agreeing to do this, Julie, for our community. And, hopefully we'll do future collaborations as well. I really appreciate you. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate you doing this. You have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye, everyone. Take care.